What's happening? A good Wednesday to all of you. Happy hump day to you and yours. Thanks for joining me as always. It is very much appreciated. Before we get started, don't forget to give us that thumbs up on YouTube to slap that algorithm right in the face. Like and comment, two things you can do that doesn't take much of your time at all. That helps us an awful lot. So please do like and comment on this video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Trying to get to 3,500 subscriptions by the time the season kicks off in just over a week or so. We're within 100 or so of that number. So like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review on Spotify, Apple Pods. I'm going to be on 98.5 The Sports Hub tonight from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Alex Barth will be joining me in studio from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. So should be a great show. Should have a lot of fun. And I also want to remind you quickly that we will not have the podcast on Friday or Monday. We've got the holiday weekend. And, of course, I will be on 98.5 Friday midday, 10 to 2 with Paul Perillo, and then back solo on Labor Day, 10 to 2 on that Monday. So no pod after today. If something huge breaks, maybe some quarterback news, we might jump in and do a quick podcast depending on time and logistics. All right, let's get started here. Jerod Mayo sat down with the media today. The anticipation, the expectation from everybody was that Mayo would announce who was going to be the starting quarterback for his football team, at least to start this season, week 1 in Cincinnati. Jerod Mayo did not do that today. Mayo told all of us that he has made the decision, but he wants to sit down with the team and tell each individual from the team who is going to be the starting quarterback. KJ Osborne, I just saw from a friend of mine in the media. He met with reporters. Reporters asked him if he knew who quarterback 1 was going to be, who will be starting in Cincinnati. And Osborne said he has no idea. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what Osborne said. Mayo says the decision is done. It is final, but he's not going to announce it just yet. I actually think that's the sensible approach. Have the conversation with the team first. Bring in as many people as you have to bring in. Talk to the veterans, right? Tell them who is going to be the starting quarterback, why you made the decision that you made. It's the sensible thing to do as a head coach. You don't want to go out there and announce it to the media without talking to the team first. Now you might ask, why did he not do that today with the team and then announce it at 1:15? He said a lot was going on. There were a lot of moves, and I could understand that. I'm sure that Mayo is having conversations with Elliott Wolf an awful lot nowadays. You've got the roster cut down day yesterday. Then you have to deal with the claims, with the waiver wire today. There's a lot of moving parts. You had to release some guys. So it just seems like it makes sense to handle that business with Wolf, and then things will settle down a little bit. You set your plan, and then you discuss things with the team tomorrow, and then you announce it via the media. I don't know if it's going to be a statement. I have no idea how they're going to do this. Mayo is not scheduled to talk to the media tomorrow, so we'll see how they announce who quarterback 1 is going to be. But even though Mayo said that he was not going to announce who's going to start, it almost felt like Mayo actually did tell us who is going to start without telling us who was going to start week 1. Here's what Mayo said, quote, this is from Greg Bedard with the transcription. Quote, I think it's important to remember what's good for the team today may not be good for the team weeks down the line. And so I think the challenge is you want to win every single game now, but also we're trying to build something special here in New England. So that to me was a challenge. Now it's interesting. It's very interesting because you can read that 2 different ways. You can read that as Mayo's telling us that, yes, Brissett's going to be the starting quarterback. You could read that in a certain way that Drake May is going to be the starting quarterback. Before I get into it, have to jump out here with a $50 super chat from our friend Vitalix. Nick, I don't know how you feel about JT, but I was watching JT O'Sullivan's breakdown of May's last preseason game. He kept pointing out May drifting into trouble on many plays, and now I can't unsee it. Do you think this is a difficult thing to correct? I don't think it's overly difficult to correct. It was an issue that he had at UNC. He would tend to drift in the pocket, and sometimes, he would drift away from the throw. He would drift into traffic. So that is something that's left over from his college days. I don't think it's something that is a big-time It can hurt you, no doubt, and you want to have it corrected. I do think, though, that he continues to progress. Dan Orlovsky has talked about that. He has showed a bunch of, videos on Twitter over the past couple of weeks breaking down some of the footwork. There's all these intricacies, right? JT O'Sullivan has also brought up the fact that May sometimes he tends to click his feet or click his heels when he's moving up in the pocket, and that's not what you want to do. You want to keep a wide base. But if you see some of these throws, he's not clicking the heels. He is keeping the wide base. He has good, strong footwork. He's not drifting. So it's not something that happens all of the time, but it certainly still is an issue that May has to overcome to be the best quarterback that he can be. Is it something that keeps him from starting eventually? I don't think it's that big of an obstacle. It is something, though, he's going to have to work on. He's going to have to be better at, and I'm sure he will over time. But yeah, the drifting, sometimes, even when he has a pocket there, he kind of tends to drift into the throws, and that's a problem. Because if you have a firm pocket and you are protected, you want to stand tall in that pocket, and you want to deliver a strike with a wide stance, make sure your feet are good, make sure your feet are turned the right way. These are all the little things that we talked about leading into the draft that he would have to tinker with, tweak, and fix. And I think we've seen him start to do that. He's not a finished product, but I don't look at that and say, oh, man, oh no. And, Steve-O jumps in. I see the chat. He says he watched Kurt Warner's breakdown, and Warner never brought up the drifting or clicking of the heels. These are little things. And sometimes, certain quarterbacks, even though they all played the same position, certain quarterbacks will look at certain things, certain tendencies, and they'll be bothered by them more often than not. But I always go back to, you got to understand that even if you play the same position, it doesn't mean the things that stick out to you the most is going to stick out the most to everybody else that played the position, right? But I go back to that story we had. I think it was The Athletic a long time ago, and I don't know when it was. And by the way, again, thank you, Vitalix, for that $50 super chat. Big time support, means the world to me. People sending money in support of the program. I never get over that. It means the world no matter how much to spend your hard-earned money. So thank you, Vitalix. But I go back, Vitalix, to the story that we had. It was months ago. I think it was Ted Wynn. I'm not sure. Don't put that down in Sharpie. But somebody wrote an article in The Athletic. And before the draft, we broke it down. And the idea was whoever wrote it spoke to a bunch of quarterback coaches. And the gist of it was, hey, look, yes, May has some issues. But nobody in that story said the issues, the footwork, some of the mechanic stuff, nobody in that story said, oh, that can't be fixed. He's not going to be able to get beyond that. So I always go back to that story with all of the quarterback coaches. And they said nothing there was, egregious to the point where it would freak you out and you'd say, oh, this guy has no chance. And these are personal quarterback coaches. We're not talking about team quarterback coaches. These are guys that work with quarterbacks all across the country, all different ages, and nothing in that story was alarming. So, yes, there are still things that he has to correct, and that would be part of the reason why, if you're Alex Van Pelt, if he doesn't want Drake May to start right now, that's a reason why, is he's got to continue to work on some of these little things. Some of the other stuff are bigger things to fix before you play, like playing under center quarterback exchanges, all of those things, the drop backs. So there's a lot of things that he can work on. JB Brown jumps in with a $10 super chat. Thank you, JB. Always appreciate it. Rager cut over Booty. Possible staff thinks more highly of Booty than fans do. I thought Booty towards the tail end, the last 2 or 3 weeks, I thought he played well enough to make this roster. Rager had his moments. But the number one argument for Rager was he's fast, right? He's got that straight line speed and special teams. I take this as an indication that this regime is not as hung up on special teams as the prior regime. I think they're making that statement by keeping Booty, because Booty doesn't play special teams. So you could say that, A, they're not leaning towards special teams guys as much, and B, Booty's younger. So maybe they look at Kayshawn and they say, look, we know what Jalen Rager is, but we still feel like there's something left with Booty. It doesn't mean that Kayshawn Booty is going to be a long-term answer for this team. Don't forget Kendrick Bourne starts the season on the PUP. That's what we thought was going to happen going back months ago. So not surprised that Bourne is going to be on the PUP to start the season. So he's going to miss at least the first month. When he's ready to come back, Booty is probably the guy that's out unless Tyquan Thornton just completely doesn't show up. Thank you, JB Brown. Another super chat, this one from Ken. $20. Came in late, but happy to catch you live. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate you with that $20 super chat. Always, again, everybody that throws money my way and helps this show continue to survive, that's why we're still here. It's because of all of you. So continue to like the show on YouTube and click that thumbs up. Like it on Facebook. Like it on Twitter. Throw your comments in, whether you think I'm an idiot or you love what I have to say. Throw some comments in. You can do that during the live video. You can do it while you watch it on demand. The comments, it causes engagement, and that's what YouTube's looking for. Likes and comments, engagement, and don't forget to subscribe as well. Ken, again, thank you for the $20 super chat. Quick update before I get back to the quarterback stuff. Patriots practice underway. Reporters are now tweeting who's there, who's not there. City So, not at practice. Vidarian Lowe, not at practice. Michael Jordan, not at practice. So 3 offensive linemen, including the guys that you want to start on the left side at tackle and guard, they are not at practice today. Tristan Hill, defensive tackle, also not at practice. Limited, Joshua Uche and Christian Ellis. So that's what we got there. And by the way, practice squad, Kevin Harris, Matt Landers, Liam Fornadell, Mitchell Wilcox, Terrell Jennings, A.J. Thomas, and Jotham Russell are your practice squad members up to this point. So that's the very latest from Patriots practice. The practice is not open to the media, so I don't think they're going to see a whole heck of a lot of action. From what I understand, it wasn't open to the media unless that changed. Maybe it changed. Let me see. Didn't look like there was a change at quarterback in the portion of practice that they watched. So, yeah, they get a limited window. Jacoby Brissett was still repping first, according to Mark Daniels of Mass Live. All right, back to the quarterback situation. Don't forget, I am on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Later tonight, 7 to 11, Alex Barth in studio, 8 to 10. You can check us out on YouTube. You can listen online, all that stuff. If you're around here, you obviously can catch it on the dial. So did Mayo actually tell us who was going to start without telling us who was going to start? I think he did. And I'm leaning towards that he told us today that it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. And the reason why is when he says it's important to remember what's good for the team today may not be good for the team weeks down the line. I don't think he says that if you're starting Drake May. Because what he's saying now is what's good now but not good later. If you start Drake May now, why would that not be a good thing later? Unless you think he's going to completely fall on his face, right? So there's some deductive reasoning here that plays a role. If you say what's good now might not be good later, I tend to think that that's talking about Jacoby Brissett. What's good for the team right now is to start the veteran quarterback, but 5, 6, 7 weeks from now, that might not be the best thing to do because the young quarterback continues to improve. Now he's caught up. Maybe he's already even with Brissett, and then he passes Brissett. So 5, 6 weeks down the road, May at that point would be better for the football team. So I don't think he says that today if it was in reverse order. I don't think he says starting Drake May is good now, but maybe not good later, because it just makes no sense. You're throwing your rookie quarterback under the bus. So I don't think that's the case. The other part that I think is throwing some people off is when Mayo said, I want to win now, we want to win now, but also build something special. I think some people could read into that and say, well, that means they're going to start Drake May. Because why would you say we want to win now, but we're also building something special? If you start the rookie quarterback, the logic would be that you're less inclined to win football games now than you are later down the road. So maybe that's what Jerod Mayo is saying. That's not what I took. That's not what I took from Mayo. When he says we want to win now, but also build something special, I think he's saying, look, May will eventually start. Like, yes, we want to win now, but we're building something special. And so if you think Drake May can help us win right now, understand that the bigger picture is we're building something special and we will eventually get to the young man. That's what I took from what Jerod Mayo said today. And I have no issue with Jacoby Brissett starting week 1. I don't. I don't have a problem with the idea of settling the offensive line, knowing what you have up front, and making sure that you solidify that offensive line as much as possible before the rookie quarterback goes out there. You look at the schedule. You're at Cincinnati. That's obviously a tough game. You play against Seattle. That's at Gillette, but Mike Macdonald, I can't get any love anymore. Mike Macdonald is going to be out there. And, of course, he's kind of an exotic defensive coordinator. Did a bunch of funky things last year with the Ravens. So I think if you start Drake May against the Seahawks, McDonald's going to throw the kitchen sink at him, and it might quickly be a nightmare. So that's a tough game. Then you got a short week against the Jets. The Jets defense we know is very tough. Robert Saleh, very good defensive mind. Might not be the best head coach, but he's a really bright defensive mind. And then after playing the Jets on a short week, you fly out to San Francisco and you face that 49ers defense. So the first month, because of the matchups, because of the coaches, how those teams are built, I think, it's not the worst thing in the world to say, let's see how the offensive line deals with that. Let's see who fits best up front. And then when we're ready to go to May, whether it's week 5, 6, 7, whatever, we'll feel much more confident in going with Drake May. The big question to me is, what do you do with the reps? That's the question, right? What do you do with the reps? Because usually when you are working with these quarterbacks in practices getting ready for games that actually count, usually what happens is the backup quarterback doesn't get a lot of reps. So if you're starting Brissett, and that's what I think the Patriots are going to do, I felt that way for really the beginning of this entire process. If you're starting Brissett week 1, and the plan is to start Brissett through the first month or so, maybe first month and a half, 2 months, who's getting those reps? And when do you start to chip into the Brissett reps? What do you do then, right? When do you start getting closer to 50-50? We'll see. Well, we won't see. I guess we'll find out. Because early on, there's not going to be a ton of reps for May. All right. We got some more news on the roster coming up in a minute. A lot of stuff has happened over the past 24 hours. I will fill you in on all of it. 98.5 The Sports Hub tonight. Alex Barth, 8 to 10 in studio with yours truly. Give us that like on YouTube, comment, subscribe, and Spotify, Apple Pods, people, rate and review. All right, so some of the moves made today. Let's go through them. These were made today. Isaiah Bolden, cornerback, cut. So we've talked about the cornerback position all camp, right? And we were wondering who's going to be that fourth cornerback, who's going to be the fourth and fifth cornerbacks for this team. There was a battle at camp. It was, Marco Wilson, Alex Austin, Marcellus Dial. You also had Sean Wade. Sean Wade was cut yesterday. That was somewhat of a surprise to me because Wade can play a lot of different positions in that secondary. And you had Isaiah Bolden. And Bolden was seemingly on his way to making the roster last year before that just difficult injury to watch during the preseason game last year. Bolden was set to be that guy. He was set to be one of those guys, right? So Bolden cut today. You have 6 cornerbacks left on the roster. I don't know how Marcellus Dial made the roster. I don't know how that happens. I have to believe it's because the front office wants to keep, quote unquote, their guy. Bolden might have been a Belichick guy. They liked Bolden, but they drafted Dial and they said, well, we want our guy on the roster. We want to continue to develop him because Marcellus Dial was awful the last 2 preseason games. He stunk out loud. He sucked against Philly and he sucked against Washington. He was brutal the last 2 preseason games. So I'm very surprised that Dial made it on the roster. Now, of course, a lot of these things can change. But the Patriots did not go out there and claim a cornerback today. So they claimed a couple of offensive tackles. They claimed a defensive tackle. They claimed a linebacker. They didn't go out and claim any cornerbacks. So that to me says they didn't think anybody out there that was on the waiver wire is better than Marcellus Dial. So they cut Isaiah Bolden. I don't know how Dial made it, but he's made it so far. And now you've got the battle, right? Alex Austin, Marco Wilson, Dial are your, fourth, fifth, and sixth cornerbacks. All camp long when they were healthy, you had Gonzo, Jonathan Jones, and you had Marcus Jones as your top three corners, and Jonathan and Marcus at times would kind of swap. So we'll see how it comes together, but I would have to imagine you'll have those three guys out there as your starting corners, the Joneses, to go along with Gonzalez. Right now, I might give the edge to Marco Wilson as the fourth corner. Dial, to me, is absolutely the sixth guy. So it's really between Austin and Wilson. And right now, I think Marco Wilson is likely to be your fourth corner. If somebody got hurt week one, I think Wilson's the guy that gets thrown out there to cover for one of the Joneses. So interesting decision. Isaiah Bolden out. Dial stays. Jalen Reagor was cut. Now, we spent a little time on this a little while ago, but I believe that Kayshon Boutte outplayed Jalen Reagor on the balance over the past couple of weeks in camp in the preseason games. He just made more plays than Reagor did. If you were arguing for Reagor, you'd argue because of the special teams, as I mentioned. I am somewhat surprised that they didn't go with Reagor, also because of the speed factor. Look, this means you're going to sit there and ride and die with Tyquan Thornton, because with Reagor off the roster, the only guy that has that kind of speed that can get downfield is Tyquan Thornton. So not only is this a signal that the Patriots are not going to lean on special teams as much as the prior regime, it's also an indication that they really are putting this on Tyquan. And this is a prove-it year. And Tyquan Thornton, look, he came in like a lion. The next couple weeks he was a lamb, but he kind of came back and finished on a better note overall from beginning to end with camp. From that start point to the end point, he was one of their best receivers. You could argue, aside from Pop Douglas, that Tyquan Thornton was their best receiver aside from Pop. Am I a believer? No, I'm not a believer just yet. I want to see Tyquan Thornton actually make some plays in games that count. But the Patriots, they're looking at this, the front office, the coaching staff, they're saying, hey, look, Tyquan Thornton's our ex-receiver. He's the guy that can get downfield. Now, of course, you could say Javon Baker can do that, but Baker's been so damn up and down, mostly down the last 3 weeks. I think he's buried right now on that depth chart, and he doesn't have the speed that Thornton or Reagor have. So when you move on from Reagor, and look, it's believable that he could get to the practice squad. He was not on the field today, but it's certainly believable he could end up on the practice squad. We'll see. But they are going to, at least for the first couple of weeks, they are going to put stock in Tyquan Thornton and hope that he shows that they're right. Again, I'm not going to be a believer until I see it, but I am willing to tell you he looked pretty good in camp. And, he made some plays, and it looks like he's done a job on route running, and he's a bit better there. He put a little bit of muscle on. So there are signs of improvement, but he's got to do a decent chunk for me to sit there and go, oh, yeah, Tyquan Thornton's an NFL receiver. We just haven't seen it, and he hasn't been able to stay on the field. So the Patriots, they said they were going to lean on their young guys. They were going to play their young guys, and it looks like they're going to. So Reagor cut. 6 wide receivers on the 53 right now as it stands. Pop Douglas, no surprise, best receiver on the team. Jalen Polk, no surprise. Javon Baker, no surprise. Your 2 picks are going to make it when they're in the top 4 rounds. KJ Osborne, not much of a surprise. You paid him $5 million this offseason. I would also say that Osborne, late in camp, kind of made a charge. So I think, he was making some plays towards the end. I don't know if he was ever in danger, but I do think KJ Osborne helped himself at camp. Of course, we have the play against Washington on Sunday night when he puts one hand up, one arm up. He's had some drop issues, but Osborne makes the team. I don't think that's a surprise. it was really the the Booty versus Rager conversation. Both guys made the initial 53-man yesterday, but when the Patriots made 4 claims today, they had to cut 4 guys. And so far, they have cut Bolden and they've cut Rager. We're still waiting for the other 2 names to come out. But there is decidedly a youth movement at wide receiver. I mean, this is a really, really young wide receiver core. This is an incredibly young wide receiver room. Pop in his second year. Polk and Baker, rookies. Booty in his second year. Thornton in his third year, but Thornton's been hurt so much, he hasn't played a lot of football, right? So Thornton's still really football young. KJ Osborne is the veteran in that room. You got a bunch of young guys. So this is a youth movement. They're going to depend on young receivers, and they're going to hope that some of those guys, end up making a pretty good jump there. I don't have any questions about Pop outside of his size and his health. Please stop having him return punts. It's a bad idea. I don't want him as the punt returner for this team. I think it's a mistake. He has proven to be, injury prone. He's got some concussion issues. He's not a big dude. Save him for the offense. Stop with the punt return crap. But there's no doubt, as long as he stays healthy, Pop is an NFL receiver, and he's a pretty damn good one at that. I like Jalen Polk. I think he's continued to get better throughout camp. Again, I think KJ Osborne has proven he's an NFL receiver. Is he a top 2 guy? Probably not, more a 2B or a 3, but he is absolutely worthy of a roster spot. Javon Baker, Tyquan Thornton, Kayshawn Booty, 3 unknowns. Baker is boom or bust. Booty is like boom or bust as well, with some, mental mishaps out there on the field from time to time. And as we discussed, Tyquan Thornton has been mostly an unknown. All right, we got more news from today. Don't forget, no pod on Friday, no pod on Monday, Labor Day weekend, also doing the midday on Friday with Paul Perillo on 98.5 The Sports Hub and NBC Sports Boston. I'm also doing the midday show on Monday. I'll be solo on Monday. So no podcasts on Friday or Monday. We have more news. Very, very busy day. Like, comment, subscribe, help us out. Doesn't cost you anything. Just takes a second of your time. Rate and review at Spotify and Apple Pods. All right. Some of the other news from today. And there was a lot. I mean, today was, I almost had a mental breakdown at like 2:00 because I'm trying to put the night show together for tonight on 98.5. I was trying to pull some sound from Jerod Mayo's press conference today. There was a bunch of stuff flying around on Twitter, guys getting cut, guys getting picked up. And I almost had a nervous breakdown. I started just cursing and getting all worked up, a little overwhelmed for about 10 minutes. Wife tried to talk me down a little bit. It's a little overwhelming at about 1:45, 2:00. But here's some other news for you because a lot of stuff was flying. City So. So obviously City So went down with an injury on Sunday night. Some wondered if it was an Achilles. Some wondered if it was a high ankle sprain. He obviously went right to the blue medical tent. He did not return. He was ruled out rather quickly. People were concerned. But according to Jerod Mayo today, So did not. He did not sustain a major injury, which is big news because he's either the second or third best offensive lineman on this team for you. And if So's healthy, that allows you some flexibility and options at tackle, right? Because if So is healthy, you could put Layden Robinson at right guard and move Owenu out to right tackle. If you don't have City So, now you're starting to stretch thin at guard. Now you might have to play Owenu at right guard, play, Robinson at left guard, and then you really only have Layden Robinson behind those guys. Cole Strange starts on the pup. So, you don't have those guys readily available to you. So So's health is big. And according to Mayo today, both So and Vidarian Lowe, Lowe and So, both of those guys, it sounds like they should be ready by week 1. Mayo did not get into great detail for obvious reasons, but he did say So did not sustain a major injury. And he said Lowe is dealing with something, and it didn't sound too major from him either. So those guys are out of practice today, but it doesn't sound like they're going to be out long term. Christian Barmore So interesting yesterday, Christian Barmore ends up on the non-injury football list, designated to return. And so some people, including myself, said, ooh, does that mean that he's going to come back? Absolutely a chance that he comes back. It's the reason why you designate him to return. Mayo said today that he's leaving the door open. He's leaving the door open for Barmore. They have not ruled him out, but this is not a case of we have him on that return list because we know he's going to return. It sounds like we're going to, hope that he returns. We're going to try to be optimistic here with him. So Barmore, it's still an unknown. I just hope he gets better as a human being. Hope he gets healthy. We all know the impact that he brings to the football field. Got some more notes for you, including Bailey Zappi and my thoughts on where he ended up. But first, Teresa Grant Terry with a $50 super chat. Happy Labor Day to all, even though Nick will be working. Yes, plenty of labor for me. Plenty of labor for me the next 5 days or so. I'm not complaining. It's a busy time. Once Labor Day hits, I will not be on 98.5 much at all because that's how radio works. All the full-time guys will be back. I understand that. So I got to get in where I can fit in. And we got a bunch of shifts coming up. We got tonight 7 to 11, Barth in studio 8 to 10, Friday with Perillo 10 to 2, midday show. Saturday I'm doing a solo show 2 to 5, and then I'm back solo on Monday 10 to 2. So a lot of shifts coming up over the next 5 days. I'm thrilled to have those shifts. Excited to do some more radio. But also understand that this is pretty much going to be it for a little while until maybe the holidays. So I'm going to get in those shifts when I can. So I appreciate you, Terry. As always, you've been unbelievable when it comes to supporting this show financially, with comments and likes and Patreon page and all that stuff. I can't thank you enough. Just unbelievable. And I'm grateful for you. So thank you for that $50 super chat. Bailey Zappi. So Bailey, he ends up in Kansas City. He's going to be on the Chiefs practice squad. And this is interesting for a number of different reasons. Number one, the Patriots now do not have veteran insurance, right? They don't have veteran insurance. If Jacoby Brissett gets hurt, he gets dinged up, you've got May and Milton. So again, things can change. And Mayo mentioned that today. There are still going to be a number of moves beyond today. You're going to see, more signings and more guys getting waived and all that kind of stuff. So we're still not sure who's going to be on that 53 when we're actually getting closer to Cincinnati. But as of right now, Patriots do not have veteran insurance. They've got Jacoby Brissett, and then that's it, right? You got Brissett, then you've got May, you've got Milton. So that does bring to question what happens if Brissett gets hurt week 1. I would think that you play May. And that's fascinating, right? Because you're telling us that Drake May is not ready to start week 1, but if Jacoby Brissett got hurt week 1, Drake May is going to start week 1. Now, I think there's not start week 1, he'll be thrown into week 1. Now, I think there's a little bit of context and nuance to that conversation. I think the Patriots would tell you, I would have to imagine the Patriots would tell you, oh, Drake May, he's ready, but he's not as ready as Brissett, right? That's the caveat. He can play in an NFL game right now. We just think that Brissett is more ready, more prepared to start right now. But the Patriots are comfortable by the cut of Bailey Zappi, right? Cutting Zappi. They're telling us they're comfortable with May and Milton. They believe that Drake May can go out there and play football. They're not scared of the idea of Jacoby Brissett getting hurt, getting banged up, leaving a game, and then Drake May going out there. So I actually think that's good news for Patriots fans. I think that's good. And by the way, you talk about me. Are you talking about me, Ellis? I'm not that pretty. Don't necessarily disagree with you. So Zappi ends up with Kansas City. So again, interesting part for the Patriots is now you don't have any veteran insurance. Ellis says, talking about Joe Burrow. Okay. Yeah, the Eminem haircut, I don't know. I don't know about that haircut. the other part of this is Zappe going to Kansas City. Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, good friends, right? They have a really good friendship. I don't think Bill Belichick talked Andy Reid into signing Bailey Zappe to the practice squad, but I would not be surprised whatsoever, and I'm not surprised that Zappe goes to Kansas City because, again, Reid and Belichick have a relationship. They view football in a lot of the same ways, so I'd imagine they'd be interested in a lot of the same players. And, of course, when they're thinking of signing somebody, they pick up the phone and they call people within the league that they know. And so it's not crazy to think that Andy Reid and the Chiefs, they're talking about Bailey Zappe and Brett Veach, the GM out there in Kansas City. They're looking at their quarterback situation. They're interested in Bailey Zappe. I don't think it's a reach whatsoever to believe that Andy Reid gives Bill a phone call and says, Bill, what can you tell me about Zappe? What information do you have? What do you got? And so I'm not surprised he ended up in Kansas City, and good for Bailey Zappe. It's a great spot, obviously. He might have a chance of getting a ring. So good for Zappe. A few other notes. Terrell Jennings signs with the practice squad. I think that's a good move by the Patriots. He had a very good camp. He stood out a few times at camp. I thought he showed some things in the preseason games. I thought the first preseason game, he popped one or two good runs. I thought he looked good on Sunday night against Washington. He's a little bit bigger of a body, right? He's a little bit bigger of a body than JaMycal Hasty or an Antonio Gibson. So you got the extra kind of bigger body. And according to reports today, Kevin Harris is also part of the practice squad. So you've got both Jennings and Harris on the practice squad, two bigger backs in case something happens with Ramondre Stevenson. And I got to tell you, I like the running back room for the Patriots. I love Ramondre Stevenson. As long as he's healthy, I think he's a damn good running back. I loved the signing of Antonio Gibson. I think some of you guys have seen why I love that signing of Antonio Gibson. He's your third down back, but he also can run every once in a while on the early downs. He's like having another receiver out there. He can play outside. He can play slot. He can play in the backfield and run a wheel route. And I think JaMycal Hasty has had a very good camp. So in preseason, I like their running back room. And I like the fact that they have Jennings and Harris as insurance on the practice squad. I like all five of those players. So I think their running back room is in good shape. As far as who they claim today, they claim two offensive tackles, bigger guys. Everyone they claim today, very athletic. That stands out. But two offensive tackles, defensive tackle, very athletic linebacker. I'm not expecting much from those guys, if anything. Maybe they end up pitching in at some point down the road here. But when you claim people off of waivers, a lot of those guys are developmental. So I don't think they're bringing in, an undrafted free agent tackle from a year or two ago thinking that he's going to start. And I thought that was a mistake, by the way, when Jerod Mayo came out and said, we can find a starting guard or a tackle on the waiver wire. That was a bit much. That was a bit over the top for me. But they bring in two offensive tackles. They bring in a defensive tackle and a very, very athletic linebacker as part of their waiver claims. And this, I'm not going to spend time on those guys because, frankly, they could be gone by tomorrow morning. Again, Jerod Mayo said it today, and everybody knows this is like a constant turnover with the roster. You're signing guys, you're waiving guys, you're signing guys, you're waiving guys, you're putting guys on the practice squad. It's, it's like all over the place. It's all over the joint. So I think that's an issue that we could maybe end up seeing play out. Maybe a few guys end up getting onto the roster and they make the team. Possibly. You know what I mean? Maybe one or two of these guys actually make the team by week one. We'll see. But I'm never really I'm never really going to go over the top with the idea of, well, they just signed this guy, this offensive tackle, and he's going to be a week one starter for us, or he's going to have a huge impact. Hopefully. I mean, if you strike gold, you strike gold, right? But there's a reason why. There's a reason why. There's a reason why these guys are available to begin with. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with the waiver wire. There are still guys out there. There are also guys that are available that got cut, but they're veterans. Waiver wire guys are the young guys. So when you're a veteran and you get cut, you sign with a team, right? You're a free agent. So there are some free agents out there that are offensive tackles that are available that I could actually see eventually starting or playing for this team. We'll see if they add any of those guys. I got to run, though. I got 98.5 The Sports Up coming up in like less than, just about over 3 hours from now. I'll be on 98.5 Alex Barth in studio from 8 to 10. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Comment. We want engagement. Whether you like us or hate us, throw a comment in on demand. Rate and review as well. Again, tonight, 98.5. I'll talk to you then. Thank you, everybody out there, for joining us today on the Nick Cattle Show.